Hey, good morning, everybody. Let me get a drink of my beverage here. So, last night we made some goop, and to do this, we ended up making that too, just because I made so much goop. So, these are easy projects. This can be used for a lot of things. This should be used for a base for another project, but I actually have a use for this. When I record my videos, there's a weird lump in the middle of the piece of terrain I use for my grasslands or forest area, and I'm going to use this to fix that. And for this, look how hard and nice and dry that goop is. And that's on there. Okay? So, you don't have to base coat it and spray. You can base coat it whatever you want. But for me, it's going to be a lot easier to use a rattle real quick and hit these. So I'm going to hit them with a rattle can and then we're going to paint them up. I just set that other one in front of the fan while I'm doing this one, and then we'll be right back. Okay. Too easy. We'll set this one in front of the fan, grab the first one. We'll finish drying this with the +2 hot air gun and burn, because I know how much you guys like magic items. Now the back of this is ugly, but we're going to use this in situations where the party won't see the back of it often, and that's what makes it okay how I'm going to do this. You're not creating a real world, you're creating the appearance, the theory that there's a world. So something like this, you just don't let them see that part of it. You keep that behind it and you keep that out of their sight. So to get started on something like this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get a cheap plastic brush and some pavement, which is from the Dollar Tree. Not Dollar Tree, I'm sorry, Walmart. And it's just a cheapy craft paint that I can get without making a drive to anywhere special. And pavement just happens to be my favorite color of any paint I own, no matter what the brand. We just want to get in here and paint this boy up. Now, if we were going to do it with a marble, we would start with probably a lighter gray or a gray blue or something. Depending on what color of marble you're going for, you know, ultimately your marbles are going to be light most times. But we're going to do this as like a polished stone kind of, maybe. I don't know what we're going to do this as. We're going to just make this and see how it looks. So I've painted the front gray. And even though no one's going to see the back, at least I would hope no one sees the back. I'm just going to hit the edges of the back anyways. Okay. Something like that. We'll let that sit and get burnt umber, which is, I'm just using craft paints. 90% of the time when I do terrain, I use craft paints. Guys, do not use your stupid good paints for terrain. They're so expensive for it. Just use your money wise. Buy the craft paints that are $1 or $1.25 or whatever they cost these days. Don't be that guy. There's still a little bit of gray in here, but I'm not overly worried about that. And now we're going to paint this bottom. And this is the same kind of colors I used on my bases for when I do minis too, most of the time. So what you're going to see is that your minis just kind of fall in with your terrain pretty well if you have a scheme you stick with. And if you see, I'm not doing a lot of specialty painting here. This is just a real easy coat. Something like that. I'm going to set my paint off to the side, rinse out my brush, and we'll move on. Now, if you think the benefit of makeup brushes on miniatures is amazing, the benefit of makeup brushes on terrain is next level. So we're going to hit this with a +2 hot air gun to burning while I put that paint away. Probably should have done the bottom last, now that I'm thinking about it, but that's okay. All right, so I'm just going to get a medium brown, or sorry, a medium gray, and I'm going to get a cheapy makeup brush, something like that. Oh wow, this one's nice. I don't think I've even used this one before. Let me get one that I have used. I don't want to ruin that. I might save that for something fancy. Something like this. It's just soft and cheap and crappy. Then we're gonna, if you hit the base and drag a little bit of that up, don't worry about it. See, like right there, I even hit the base and drag a little bit up. Just work it in, man. My dudes. Be all right. Okay. And then what we want to do is we're going to get something significantly lighter. This is granite. About out of that. Get some. Put on a list. And then just go off your existing crap. Wipe a lot of that off. And kind of bring it down one more. Now I'm going to set my brush off to the side, and I'm going to move that up there a little bit. I'm going to hit this with a +2 hot air gun burning. We're going to get that light gray again. We're going to mix it around one more time and make it something much, 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 much lighter. And this is a real dry brush. I mean, we're getting a lot of this off here. And we're going to just kind of tap it along here and create a nice varied look, something like that. See that? So now our something that was dumb and it looked like that and there was nothing we could do with that. We have something like this to work with. So I'm going to get my brown back out and go back down and retouch up on that base a little bit where I got dry brushing of the gray. And that was a lesson learned. I knew better. When I was doing it, I was thinking, oh, that's not smart. Okay. We're going to have the +2 hot 2 English. We're going to have the plus. I haven't even finished a cup of coffee. I got really excited to work on this. Anytime I do something like this where it's kind of like one of those that sits out overnight, as soon as I'm awake, I'm like, okay, is it ready for me? All right, so I'm going to get a medium brown and bring that down just a tad from where it's at. And I'm going to use that same brush I just had to do this. A little cheapy one. And if you get your little brush, wipe some of that off, and then kind of drag it along. You really want to break up that color the best you can. So now we have some variation here. And because this is such a large area, we're going to get one more lighter color, like a beige. We're going to do that again, just in some of the higher areas and stuff, just to give it a little bit more variation. Now, you can skip steps here. If you're real basic and you're just trying to get something done, you can use 2 colors or even 1 color. I'm not promising it's going to look great, but there's a lot of options here. If you don't feel stuck, if you don't have everything I have, or if you can't recreate what I've made here, because all I'm showing you is some ideas of what I'm doing with what I found laying around, and we're all going to have different things we use, okay? So now this looks a little better. We need to do some serious love to this, though, okay? So I'm going to wash that brush out. And I'm just going to get something plastic I can use to work in. So this is the lid from a coffee can, a plastic, plastic lid from a coffee can. And what I want to do is I want to get a couple colors, and there's some colors I like to use specifically for this next part. This color here is called English Ivy. It's another one of those Walmart paints, and I love this color. And my English Ivy is a little bit wet, but not quite wet enough for what we're going to do here. So I'm going to get some English Ivy, and I'm going to get my little brush here. That brush is too big for what I'm doing. Hold on. I'm going to get that size 3 workhorse brush. I'm going to get some water in that. And try to match about the same size of that. Okay. Then, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag that around and touch. I'm going to keep it real wet and just touch some spots where I want to simulate that it's a little mossy or moldy, or there's some grossness going on, some wild growth of some sort on here. And you don't want it to be symmetrical. You just kind of want to do it sporadically around. The secret to selling something like that is that symmetry never works. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get a little bit of water here. And I'm going to get a reddish brown. This is called Chocolate Bar, and it's another one of these kind of craft paint deals. Get a little more water there. There we go. And I'm just going to hit some of these other spots that need it. Need some variation. That's all they are. I'm not going to go as drastic with this as I did with the other. Okay. I'm going to get a little bit of that on the base, a spot here maybe. I'm going to do that with the green too. A little bit on the base. Just to make this look a little older and more terrible. I'm going to set my coffee can lid off to the side. And you can just wipe that off with a paper towel or something and save that for later if you want. Let's take a look at this. So far, so good. Alright, we're going to get a really light gray now. We're not going to have it mixed with anything. We're going to have it as a clean, pure color. And, oh, well, I did mix it with something. I actually put it right on top of that shit. Alright, well, it happens. Getting a cheapy brush. And you can put a little bit of tan or a little bit of brown in here too with this if you wanted to. Depending on what kind of stone you want this to look like, what kind of terrain, area this might be for what you're using it for. So this is all mostly dry. Okay. Now let's get a little fancy. We know we have some flock needs here. So let's get some different colors of flock and look and see what we can do. Let's get a toothpick and some clear glue. Just get a dab of that going. So my first color of flock I'm going to use is brown. And this is just a flock I made myself. It's nothing too fancy. It's just some, what do you call this stuff? Sawdust. And I'm going to get my flock, or my glue, and I'm going to rub out a spot here where I'd like some of my brown flock to be. I'm going to find 2 different spots maybe where I think a little bit of brown flock would serve me well. And I'm going to do it over my flock bin so I can dump it back in. And just kind of touch it down to get as much contact as you can. And then shake off the excess. And then we're going to grab another color and we're going to do something like that again. We don't want to cover up all the work we did painting the base. We just want to give this some different colors that make it look a little more natural, a little more fun. If there's spots where that reddish brown, like for me, that's what I'm doing right here. I didn't like somewhere that reddish brown landed. It didn't look good to me. I'm just cleaning that up with covering it up with flock. Okay. Now I do have some autumnal flock too, but I'm not going to pull that out for this because I don't think we're going to need it. And this is another shade of green. This is like a deader, less vibrant green. It's a little darker. And I'm not going to use a whole lot of this one. Okay. Now I have that flock I use on everything. And I think that would look nice on here, but I'm not going to grab that today. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit of this floral moss here. I'm going to pull that off. We get 2 clumps of that. And a miniature. This is, I always use an official miniature with an official size base to kind of see how much room I have to work with. So what I would like to do is I'd like to take this small clump, and I'm just going to get this, I put a dab of glue in here. And I'm going to get this small clump, and I'm going to mush it up, and I'm going to shove it down into that hot glue. And then it'll start popping back out some. And I managed to get spider webs all over me. I'm going to do the same thing right here. Just a little dab of super hot glue. Not super hot, though it is super hot. Then I'm going to let that just kind of pop itself back out. And now we've got this nice little entrance gate here. And see how there's a little bit of glue that came out right there, like a string? We can try to get that with tweezers or something, or a toothpick or whatever you have, and that's just a spider web that bounce back in is all that is. Or you can add more stuff to cover that up. All right, so there's our gate. And when it dries, I'm going to hit it with a clear coat. There we go. And it starts out with a unicorn on it. Yeah. You don't have to explain that to people either, that there's a unicorn on there. You can keep that to yourself. That's nobody's business why there's a unicorn there. All right, let's get a piece of cardboard. And let's do something with this one. First step is going to be to paint it brown. That's a pretty large surface area. So I'm just going to use a pretty large brush. Okay. Should be a lot of brush cleaning after this episode. We're just going to hit this with a +2 hot air gun and burn. Now, I had a little too much water in my brush there, and it's not even quite dry all the way. We're just going to have to deal with that. That's the price I'm going to have to pay for my insurrection there. I lost that melted chocolate color I was using. Yeah, I sure did. Where did I put that? No worries. We're going to get a makeup brush here. Just a cheapy makeup brush. Oh, this is the wrong color I wanted. That's way too red. There we go. This is not. Ooh, popped right off there, didn't it? You dog. Okay. We're going to get a medium beige kind of color. We're just going to get a dab of that there and do the same thing. I'm not cleaning out my brush at all. I'm just continuing to go in this direction down. Just colors, tone. Make it lighter and lighter and lighter. I don't know if that's down or up. Somebody that knows about color theory, tell me in the comments, is that down or up? Because I just don't know. Once you're happy, let's get our rocks. And my favorite color in the whole world, pavement. Let's paint those nice and dark gray. This is a good time to have that discussion again about fantasy realism. So, capturing a sense that these things are this color and that things are this color is a good habit to get into with your terrain. Ultra realism is probably not. And the reason I say this is because if people ever bring their own miniatures, or anyone ever gifts you terrain, or you decide to buy something you see terrain-wise, if you have all ultra-realistic stuff, that stuff might not mush well. A little bit of a cartoony miniature might not work. A little bit of a silly-looking piece that's kind of out of scale might just look unbearable on your table. So if you build everything at like a reasonable mid-tone of fantasy realism, where it looks like it would be real in maybe in a movie or something. It's a little over the top, a little silly. Maybe the colors aren't exactly how it could naturally be. That's a good thing. What that'll do is it'll tie in the serious looking stuff you acquire and the cartoony stuff you acquire. And it'll also help create a false impression that this is a fantasy world and this is not the real world, and that color transitions are vivid and sometimes they're a little crazy. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you're going to take the time to make terrain and miniatures and stuff and not do a Theater of the Mind campaign, along with your physical descriptions you give verbally, having some kind of system in place that reinforces that is good. All right? So all I'm doing here is mixing this up to get like a variation gray to kind of repaint some of the surfaces of those. And break those up a little bit. Then I'm going to +2 hot air burn these bulls. I'm going to get a lighter gray. I'm just going to lightly grab. All right. Now we can flock right now, or we can get some thinned out colors. And since we did the other one, we do have some thinned out colors. I think what we should do is use some of this since we have it. So I'm just stirring that back around and getting that. And then if there's any weird little flat spots in here, I'm just adding that. There are a couple of weird flat spots. That just happens. And then see how there's like this little bit of like sticky up parts here where I used way too much super glue? I'm going to hit those too. Just the spots where I used too much super glue, not everywhere. This green. And I don't care if this matches on my other terrain. So I'm going to take this reddish brown, and I'm only going to use this sparsely in a couple spots because I don't really care for it. It's a little more than I wanted to use. It doesn't look exactly how I want it to on that archway. Okay. So we have something like that. It's got some natural variation in there. I think maybe a little bit of green there and there would help. I'm just going to get my water. Grab a little more of that. Okay. I think that looks better. Pardon me. The only reason we need this dry now is so that flock doesn't stick to it. So I'm going to get my glue. And honestly, for something like this, it's probably better to use a cheapy brush. So let's get a cheapy brush. Something that if you don't want to clean it out, you can throw it away. We just want to get down in some. We want to make sure we have good bond because we're going to be putting miniatures on this and stuff. Especially me because I'm going to be using this for my new display board for things and stuff. That's my first green. Now I'm going to grab my brighter green, and I'm going to repeat that process. All right, let's get a little more clear glue. And I'm going to assume you have some kind of flock. If you don't, this is dillweed. I bought this at Dollar Tree. See that? And it's got a very potent smell. But guess what? We can use that as flock. Are you like, Doom, are you using dillweed as flock? And I will say, yeah, I am using dillweed as flock, my dudes. I am using some dillweed. And I think you're a dillweed, and that is the only reason I bought dillweed. So now, we're going to get some more dual weed there. Push it down. And this will give it an interesting color. And let's see here. What is this? Something else you can use this flock. Italian seasoning. This is going to be a good smelling piece of terrain. If I eat it, you'll know why. So you can use all kind of stuff for a flock. You don't have to spend a bunch of money, and you don't have to make a bunch like I made. Okay. So I'm just going to get a little bit of Italian seasoning. And what's nice about Italian seasoning is it's a bunch of different types of stuff ground up in it. So when you use it, it actually has a serious amount of variation in it. It's kind of nuts. See that? It's got a bunch of crazy stuff in it. Now, some of the stuff is kind of big and chunky and doesn't work well for what you want it to most of the time. Now, I would recommend you let this glue sit in. This is Spring Fling. This is a very bright green flock I made. I don't think we need more green on here. I think we've succumbed to fantasy realism pretty hard on this. But I am going to get a light gray. And I'm just using this because it's right here. Don't use your miniature paints like I just did. Use craft paints. Do what I say, not what I do, motherlickers. You dillweeds. Okay. And I'm just going to take these rocks up just one more notch. Okay, there you go. So that was what I did with my Goop from last night. I made a new display board for my turntable, and I want to make sure there's nothing sticking up too high that's going to make minis be wonky in the middle there, and so there's not. And I'm going to put this in front of the fan. I'm going to let this dry with that glue before I clear coat it for probably about 30 minutes. I should say an hour, but I'm going to be honest with you, it's going to be 30 minutes because I'm super impatient. And this will be a good, well, you've seen my shorts, you know. This guy's spinning, and I'm like, this is a half-elf. He likes to sit on a bar stool upside down. So, there you go. Hey, if you like what I'm doing here, that was a long one, I'm sorry. Let me get the archway. So there's the archway, and there's the piece of terrain there, my new display board. If you like what we're doing here, please hit like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell icon. And the big one that seems to excite me the most is the comments. I like talking about them, and it gives me ideas for things to do, and I like when people are interested and engaged. So leave some of those comments. Go to the website. The link will be in the description. Buy some minis. Go join our Discord. Come hang out with us. That'd be sick too. Thanks for watching.